Red Cloud Financial Services is your preeminent source for mining industry opportunities. The team provides a unique tailored marketing program dedicated to reaching the right people from its mining-focused global network, giving clients access to industry-leading events and conferences, retail and institutional marketing, plus an in-house growth-driven digital agency. Red Cloud Financial Services has access to some of the mining industry's most notable companies and CEOs. For more information, visit redcloudfs.com.
Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be back. We've got another great guest. This is a friend of mine with two great projects in Aztec Minerals. It's great to catch up with you because you've got some great news, some sampling that's come out, and two great projects, one in Mexico, one in Arizona, the Tombstone, and then the one in Sonora. But I think the news today, the focus is coming out of Tombstone.
Yeah, hey Andrew, great to be on your show once again. It's been a couple years and an exciting time for us at Aztec this week. Really, we had our first batch of surface sampling results that came out of the Tombstone contention open pit after about a 12-month hiatus of drilling or surface work there. So, you know, we've been planning to get back involved in Tombstone for the last few months. Got organized, raised some money to make it happen, and in April started in earnest with a fairly significant sampling program of almost 500 rock, chip, and channel samples. And earlier this week on Tuesday, we were able to get the first batch out, and we're very, very pleasantly surprised with the grade and the width that we've encountered on surface here. So 30.2 meters, averaging 3.7 grams per ton gold, almost 168 grams silver, or 5.8 grams gold equivalent, using an 80-to-1 gold to silver ratio, just from our first batch of results. And you know, I can get into why we undertook this program, but just kind of wanted to reintroduce the project in general to your group here and to the investing audience, because I think you know, clearly we're not getting value in the market for what we've already done, and we think that we're on the cusp here of a bigger exploration program over the back half of the year that should make some, we think, or has the potential to make some big advances in terms of the size and tonnage of the shallow, potentially open pittable, potentially heap leach amenable gold and silver system that we've been drilling over the past 4 years.
And I remember the Tombstone project quite well. It's 75% JV interest in that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we own the majority of that with some partners out of the States.
Yes. And I remember because it was, you know, it's the shallow portion of that, which was so interesting. You've got great results from it in the past, but to see this hints moving forward must, it reignites the story, I guess, and really gives it some legs to moving forward.
Yeah, and look, we weren't looking to reignite the story with the surface program, but let me explain why we did it. So we've been doing some internal modeling, and obviously the results that we've had over the past 3 years with the drill holes have been pretty spectacular. I mean, some of the highlights, and bear in mind that these are all shallow, very shallow intersections in a oxide type environment. You know, some of our headlines include 65.5 meters, averaging almost 2.5 grams gold, 66 grams silver, or 3.4 grams gold equivalent, 96 meters of 2.2 grams gold equivalent, 125 meters of 1.6, 32 meters of over 6 gold equivalent. So these were fantastic results, and we've been obviously integrating them into our 3D and geological models. And one thing that we noticed was that there was a bit of an information gap between the intersections at depth and the surface mineralization. And you know, anybody that can you know, get on the internet and look at our presentation can see that you can observe these structures outcropping its surface in the pit, but we didn't have any assay information on them, and as such we're a little bit constrained in the influence that we're getting in the geological and models rather. So the you know, the obvious knowledge gap there was to go in and take these 500 samples, which we took in a methodical fashion in 2-meter continuous chip channel samples, and have now not only confirmed the nature of the mineralization, but expanded it up vertically from the intersections at depth. So it's pretty big for adding ounces potentially when we have a compliant resource. But it also gives us the roadmap and the foundations to drill an expansionary program over to the west side target, which is a very significant new piece of information we encountered in our drilling program of 2023. And just to touch on that, so we were drilling last year with core for the first time, had some spectacular silver results for the first time, actually. But as part of that program, obtained some new data, which was, interestingly enough, an open pit expansion plan from the previous operators in the 1980s, who at the time of around 1982 had engineered and contemplated about a 500-meter dogleg expansion of 80 meters depth out to the west side mine target. And we had no knowledge of this until last year. And to date, our only knowledge of it is a schematic of the pit expansion. But it lines up really nicely with some of the underground workings that we have information on that are mapped now and have been integrated into our 3D model. So we think that essentially we have at least 500 meters expansion to the west and then potentially further to the south. And to tie that all together, what that could result in is our current 900-meter long mineralized area that's been proven through drilling and now obviously enhanced and increased to the surface. It's about 900 meters in strike and 250 meters in width. It can now expand potentially in excess of another 500 meters to the west. So this goes from, I don't want to use the word small, but maybe some people would think it's a small opportunity to definitely a medium-sized one. And if it continues on down to the south, it could be a large scale opportunity. And this is a great slide to highlight that. So you can see here that west side sort of dog leg. From what we know, that was slated to be a 1982 open pit expansion. And what we figure is that as the Hunt brothers were trying to corner the market then and failed and collapsed the silver market, collapsed a little bit, the group that was operating the mine elected to refocus on the gold rich zone in the contention pit. And unfortunately, in the mid 80s, lost their mining license and weren't able to ultimately go out to the west side. So all that to say is that it appears to be a more silver rich part of the district, which is pretty exciting for us and for our shareholders.
It's pretty wild whenever you find kind of like a, I won't call it a discovery technically, I'll be careful with my language, but it is, you've discovered, not from drilling, but from just hard work and looking at data, that this was there, because it wasn't something that you, like you said, you expected to be there.
Well, that's right. Yeah, it's very fortunate, and it took a little bit of time to get it to this stage. We did actually have to go and buy some land, so we made the data discovery, let's call it that, and then wanted to go out and tell the world, but had to buy the land before somebody else did. So that was something we announced about a year ago, last May, or 13 months ago, as we picked up a very key patented mining claim. And just to reiterate or to reintroduce this concept, basically our entire geologically interesting target area in Tombstone is all under private patented mining claims.
Yes.
And that is a huge advantage that I don't think can be overstated in today's permitting and world climate, that to be on private land in Arizona, in Cochise County no less, which is the very, very southeastern corner of the state. This is potentially about as mining friendly as it gets for open pit or underground mining. So really fortunate that we were able to increase the land package, get the key patent that has this west side expansion on it, and really tease us up now for potentially a drill program later this year that could, obviously you can see with this slide here that yellow outline was going to be in a pit. If that comes back proved through our drilling, it's basically going to double what we've already come up with.
Yes.
And Andrew, we've come up with a lot with only 6,500 meters of drilling to date over 50 holes.
Yes, that's what's so great. And then it also explains to people like, well, they're kind of quiet there for a while. And you realize the strategy of, oh, we found this thing here. We have to go get that land. You can't announce to people that you're going to go do that because why would you shoot yourself in the foot? So it lets people know, oh, okay, that's why there was a bit of spying going on here, being quiet and it's interesting because that's part of the business. You can't give up your hand, whenever you're expanding things. And it would be such a huge I wouldn't even call it inferred, but it opens up the spacing quite a bit if you can add that 500 meters in.
Yeah, I mean the drilling will prove that out or not. And obviously that's the case with every exploration company. Everybody's really at the end of the day just testing their good ideas, and they either they work or they don't with the new information that comes back. We just happen to see this one in our calculation as being much lower risk and potentially very, very high reward if we tap into some of these high grade structures that were mined in the 1880s. That West Side mine, I don't want to misquote here, so I'll pull up the news release on my other screen. But it was reported to have the highest silver and gold grades of any of the historic silver and gold mines back in the district when it was first in production back 140 years ago now. And the reports that we have suggest 5,000 tons averaging 67 ounces per ton silver and almost 1.3 ounces per ton gold with almost 10% lead as well. So that's a pretty good area to be drilling into the hanging walls and footwalls of that the old stopes that produce those kind of grades. So pretty good potential, we think, to maybe come up with some really great numbers that add to the overall story at Tombstone, which is it's such a cool little district, right? It's underexplored. It has not had a lot of modern day drilling or geological modeling done on it. We're really the first to come in there with computers, really, to come in and get everything up in Leapfrog. And we have volumes of information, underground maps, underground workings, obviously our drill hole database. We have some drill holes from the late 80s from Santa Fe Mining that went down 700 meters. We now have made a discovery of some drilling that Newmont did in the 1950s. It hit some pretty exciting numbers. So it's all coming together now. And while we were quiet the last few months, we definitely won't be quiet going forward. And I think the gold and silver market, as you were chatting with your previous guest, there was a good discussion at the end there about and while you guys were talking and I was listening, I pulled up the 5-year gold price chart, and it's like, what else do you want to be involved in right now? I know the last
Yes.
6 weeks have been a little bit of a lull in terms of the equity participation, but it's an amazing chart, and to me it does not look like it's breaking down.
No, I think that the overall commodity itself, just to take gold, we'll talk about silver in a second as well, because that's set up because of Mexico and their election. I don't want to get ahead of myself. We'll talk gold first. The gold narrative, I mean, it's not going to change. And I think it's going to take some time before people then look at the big name equities. They'll look at the Barracks, all that, and they'll spend a bit of time looking at that and thinking, okay, where can I make some money on that? They're eventually going to trickle down like they always have in the past. And that's when we have big mining booms. And it seems to be it's set up not only on that side because of fiat money and the amount of money that's been printed by the US and the West, about the BRICS story that's been developing at a very fast pace. Just, 3 weeks ago, the Saudis coming off the petrodollar saying we're not renewing our deal with the US. These are huge monumental stories a few years ago that are kind of being like, oh, that just happened. Those paying attention are looking and going, I need to know where we're getting more gold, and we'll get into the silver here in a second because that's an industrial more story. And I think it's just a matter of time before people start realizing there's some exploration stories out there. And it's a little bit easier to find better ones than other ones that have got a lot of data, a lot of information, some good results that are a steal.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I'm not really super surprised that the juniors have been sleepy at the kind of the last 3 months of this bull market. I'm just looking here on my other screen at the GDX chart, And, it's had a good run, but it's not been anything earth shattering, up about 25% and consolidating a little bit. So, just by the nature of the structure of the market, the big guys need to make money on the safe stocks first before you see a big trickle down. And, we've seen the foundation for that being set. Just obviously hasn't manifested yet. And it's a little bit frustrating to look at the gold price kind of rocketing over the last few months and to not see that follow through in the equities. But that is quite typical. I mean, the new money to come into the juniors has to be generated somewhere. And the best place for it to be generated is in big gains in the bigger, so-called safer stocks. And I don't see any real technical damage in any of those charts to suggest that that's not going to happen as the cycle progresses, and obviously as these major mining companies increase their cash flows and ultimately deplete their reserves and resources and have to go looking for more. And then they'll have to really get serious about expanding their cash flows when the institutional investors and the generalists come clamoring to own their shares. So it's all coming. It's obviously just bit torture in slow motion.
Yeah, and that's what happens. I mean, I always kind of joke that anybody has to be a bit of a masochist that's in the mining sector, because you're going to spend 80% of it being stomped on for a while, with maybe 15 to 20% where it just goes through the roof.
Totally, yeah. I mean that everybody becomes that way after a couple of years of dipping their toes in. But I mean, if that were not the case, you wouldn't have the asymmetric returns when everybody piles in.
Yes, and let's just focus a little bit here and shift to silver, because some people go, oh, it's this, the silver is the poor man's gold kind of thing. You go, well, silver's had a huge run in the last year and a half, but I'm going to take it from because we look at a lot of Arizona companies in different sectors, as well as in mining, and Mexico. And we've paid a lot of attention to Mexico because of the election. We now have an extreme left president who is taken over from a pretty far left, extreme left ex-president. And that matters because silver is used in solar panels. China is kicking out solar panels like you wouldn't believe. It's incredible. They're apparently going straight to source to try to find silver. What's going to happen? Extreme leftists don't really love production of anything. Mexico is a huge provider of silver. If you have a good silver discovery in on U.S. soil, that's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I, we do have an asset in Mexico, so I don't.
You don't want to be careful. I know.
I don't want things to get any worse there from a sentiment perspective. But yeah, I mean, it's a good point to have silver supply coming from so-called safer jurisdictions. So obviously our silver should be very attractive to investors looking for exposure. We do have literally a past producing silver district under our 75% JV ownership. But the silver market in general has been, it's been on fire. You're right, in tandem with gold, lagging a little bit to start, and then had some huge gains about 6-8 weeks ago. But looking out, like I'm just again looking at my chart here, if we pull it out to 2011, we're not even really, we're just over halfway from that big spike. So again, a little bit of lackluster investor follow through in the juniors in the silver space, but it's one that's just right there. I mean, it's not going to go up every single week and month. Nothing does. And once we start to push through 35, 36, I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy in the silver space, I think. And, at that point, it'll just be too late to be positioned in any of these things.
That's the thing, getting positioned now. And that's why I tell people you should be learning now as much as possible. And I'm picking on Mexico a little bit. I think that she understand she's very pragmatic. I think the amount of money they make in mining, they're going to move forward with it. Also, them being far left, they know that Communist Chinese Party is going to want silver. So like they're going to supply that demand. The amount of solar panels that are coming out of China, it's shocking. And that's a lot of silver. It's a ton of silver. And people don't realize that. A lot of people don't know that silver is such a huge industrial component. And that, I think, as that story also trickles down, is it's great to have the fiat currency and the gold story as a precious metal, but having like, oh, wait, silver is also a precious metal, but it's also an industrial metal for this green future. That's a very attractive story to people.
Well, exactly, yeah, and you touched on a key point there with the huge solar panel demand for silver coming out of China. I mean, I just saw that in the news. I think it was last week, and I was just shocked at how that's growing. So it's it's a huge area, and then once you layer in the investment demand on top of that, the so-called poor man's gold, which is pretty funny because uh, it's one of those assets that I believe it's a giffen good, right? When the price goes up, the demand actually increases, which is
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is awesome. That's
Yeah.
super rare. And I'm a silver bug. Hey, I get caught up in it myself. Remember when the silver squeeze happened in 2011? Um, I went out and bought some for fun. Didn't think I
Yeah.
was going to help corner the market, but it's kind of a fun, bigger thing to be a part of. It's a great awakening of people that understand that the system. I don't want to say is rigged, but it's a little things are a little funny right now, and
Yeah.
here's a way that I can check out a little bit. I'll buy some gold and silver. I'm a sovereign man, a sovereign person. I'm going to control my own money the traditional way, which I think is pretty awesome. And I
Yeah.
think it's a big growth market for investors to become that way. Bitcoin obviously, was the standard bearer for that. I think created a lot of converts to the sound money movement.
Yeah.
But now there's some maturity coming into that market, I guess, but I think the minds have been awakened to this sort of concept of
Well, yeah.
things aren't as they seem.
No, no. And I mean, I'm going to be a little bit controversial and say I don't care for the Bitcoin argument per se, because I then go, I'm the sovereign man. I'm sovereign, but at the same time, my key partner is BlackRock. That to me go,
Right.
wait a second, they're not your friend. This is not this is your partner moving forward. The U.S. government and BlackRock is being the two key holders of it right now.
No, I mean exactly, and I totally agree with you, and I don't want to bash
No, I
Bitcoin
don't want to bash
because
it, but just
yeah,
it's just
I don't want to
interesting.
bash it because they kind of bash us a little bit. And
Yes.
I don't think it's fair. I think we're all on the
No.
same team,
Yeah.
and it's good to hear the other side of the argument because
Yeah.
you really don't want to have any blind spots. And they make a lot of good points, and a lot of things that they've said have
Absolutely.
come true.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, they're good people, and a lot of them have made a lot of money on some of these
Yes.
plays, and I just don't think that they're going to continue to see those returns. And it might be an idea to look elsewhere and to
Yeah.
diversify. It's not an either or proposition. Just
No.
increase your asset allocation across other sort of non-fiat transactional currencies like gold, obviously being the one that has literally stood the test of human time. Every sovereign and every family that's sustained over the generations has had a healthy allocation to gold.
Yes.
And I think you can see the central banks are moving in that direction again.
Yeah.
And obviously they're very powerful and run by some pretty smart people. So ultimately I think the common folk will follow suit.
Yeah. I think for someone who like myself, and I have interest in like Bitcoin and different blockchain type approaches. Because my kind of in my head, I look and I go, maybe the developing story is you've got bricks that seems to be it's going to be a commodity backed type of system, perhaps whether it's precious metals, I don't know, but they're buying up gold and silver like crazy. Like I mean, it's nuts at the pace at which they're buying. And whereas you look at the West or the U.S. particularly, they're going more of the digital, more kind of a digital fiat or a Fed coin or whatever. And to me, I say, well, listen, if you want to play it safe, you should probably have both. Like you shouldn't just pick one and just roll the dice and go, listen, you like your coin, I get it, but you might also want to have exposure to this other one that might be a competitor anyway.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, and all you need to do is just read a bit of history and to realize why you need a bit of gold. I mean, I think it's like a 13 or 14 trillion dollar market, right? That's dominated by sovereign banks, wealth funds, wealthy families. And obviously there's a big component of jewelry in there and then just
Yeah.
conventional investment demand. But that's like 14 times crypto
Yes.
or Bitcoin. So I mean, I wouldn't just dismiss gold
No.
because Bitcoin's had some spectacular price gains. It's anyways. I like
We're
the world's
belaboring it, but
changing.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
the
changing.
world's changing, and we're never going back to 1995, right? No matter
Yeah.
what happens. So I don't think chasing 1995 logic is a sound
No.
investment advice.
It's funny you even bring that up, because when I first started at Merrill Lynch, we had a gold bug in there, and I was young. I remember thinking, what is like, and he was old as well. And I was like, what does this guy do all day? I like gold. What, like, does that even exist? I would be making the argument anyone young today would be saying is, look at all this cool tech stuff we're doing. Why are you looking at gold? And he had his time. He didn't have it that year, but he had his time in the sun, and he was very happy.
Well, totally. No, let me just add to that, right? So that is one of the criticisms that I hear of the mining and gold spaces. Like, the young people aren't engaged. They don't care.
Yeah.
They want Bitcoin. They want digital. And then they say, look at this investment show. I went to this forum or this, booth show, and it was all gray hair. And to me, I'm like, well, why are the gray-haired people there? Because they obviously made money like
Yes.
lots of times in the past. I don't think they're there for fun, right? They've
No.
got their own lives, their own things going on. They're not, trekking down to the convention center in Toronto or Vancouver, New Orleans or whatever, because it's a good time. I mean, it is a good time, but you know what I mean, right? It's
Yeah. They're not just lonely. They're not lonely.
Yeah,
Like Clint Eastwood.
they hold a lot of wisdom, right?
Yes.
And they were at one point young, and they obviously made money when they were young on these
Yeah.
things. And there have been countless episodes of the funnel effect of spec capital coming into the juniors. That's why. And it is a little unfortunate that there aren't more, millennials or Gen Z involved, but they will come, right?
Yes.
People
Yeah.
just want to make money, and they want liquidity. And it will happen in the junior mining space. They'll all come, and we'll have a new cycle. It will reset. It's always been this way.
All right. Well, let's just kind of wrap this up and let me know, what are we looking forward to that you can talk about in the short term here? So, I mean, you've got a great story moving forward here that people are going to want to pay attention to. How can they keep, without looking at stock price or anything like that, just they go, how can we keep you accountable to see how you're going to do the following in the next 3-6 months?
No, definitely keep me accountable. And what you're going to see over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, hopefully, is the remainder of our assays. I mean, we only put out the first third of them, so we're going to have a lot more hard data assay information. And then the next thing to look out for is how that integrates into our drilling plan, and then the commencement of that drilling plan and the results of it, and has it proven our model or not. So that would be sort of the 6-month accountability angle to it. And obviously, yeah, we can't make any projections on the share price or anything like that. But I think if we're not going to undertake this if we don't think it's got a very good chance of succeeding. It would make no sense to do so otherwise. We're not obligated to spend any money on this property. We're only going to do it if we think that it adds value. So the whole macro backdrop, I think, will help. But the execution and the results will ultimately make this a success or not.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing the results of the execution of the plan, and whenever news comes out. And like you said, in 6 months, it's going to be a very different world. We'll be past a U.S. election, and that'll be a good thing, because whatever way that comes out, things will settle down a little bit, or not. Either way, the story of gold isn't going to change, because the bigger macro and the bigger world news out there is that commodities, more than ever, it just needs to trickle down to the average person on the road that understands whether it's battery metals, whether it's the fiat currency, whether it's solar panels. The amount of mining and drilling that's needed to be done is astronomical, and looking for companies that are this far ahead and that have good results, they're going to be looking for that.
Hey, man, I agree. Thanks for having me on. Go gold, go silver. And to quote the famous meme, always has been.
Excellent. All right. Cheers. Have a good day, Simon. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. See ya.
Take care.